Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go. Let's give this a second shot here. Welcome in for the second time today for some of you to the Sports Fix here. As if you're listening live, we've just been 30 minutes in the vortex here, down a hole, as the song used to say. And the entire computer, if you were listening live, we went on the air, kicked it off, and I don't know, I was maybe 90 seconds into opening the show, and the whole system just locked up to the point that I had to unplug the computer and power everything back up again, and it took this long to get going. And I'll tell you what, I'm very tenuous about the remainder of this show because I'm already seeing some signs here that there's some bad weather, there's some internet instability, and I've let you guys know about this, by the way, for those of you that are listening now for the first time. But making the switch over from the internet service provider that we've had for years, that was great, that is no longer in business, and they've given us a window to wrap up. And unfortunately, where I live, my options for high speed, especially at the speed that we need to do what we do here, internet service is very limited, as in Time Warner, baby. That's my option. And unfortunately, I've got a gap here between when I can get this thing switched over, and I'm in the tail end of what they call bandwidth throttling with the internet service provider that I have. They want you to go, and they want you to go quickly because they're trying to move on. So they throttle the bandwidth, and I do believe that that's what led to our problem here today, as several things going out over the air at the same time instantly caused my computer to crash. I'm feeling the same connectivity issues as well here, and it appears that for the next couple of weeks, unfortunately, we may be dealing with some intermittent issues like this. That's fine. Come the back half of October, things will be reasserted, the infrastructure will be changed here, and we won't have these problems going forward. But unfortunately, I think I would be lying to you if I told you that this is going to be a one-time thing, because I can totally see the signs of some of these problems continuing for the next couple of weeks. That being said, I'm going to do a shorter opening segment here today. I'll get Dan Wismar in on the conversation with me. I know he just sent me a text here just a moment ago saying, hey, what's going on? Is the show going on? And I say, man, I haven't even gotten a chance to reply to him yet. But we're on the air. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to get Dan in on the conversation because we've got a ton of things to get into. And again, not going to belabor too long on what went wrong because many of you are listening live on digital delay and nothing has gone wrong with this broadcast. So if that's you, hey, I want to live in your world right now. I just got to take a woosah here and kick this thing off. We do have a ton to get into with the Browns, with all of the garbage that's circulating around them yet again today. We'll get into it. Dan Wismar, cannot wait to get his thoughts on all of this. To me, bigger, more pressing story. The Cavaliers one day into this thing, and we're already doing the whole next man up gimmick as Iman Shumpert last week breaks his wrist practicing for the season, 3 months out with surgery here, and maybe even a little bit longer than that, but it's probably going to be about a 3-month recovery for Shumpert and get him back in the midway point of this season. But here we are. It seemed like we ended last season doing the whole next man up thing, and we are starting this season with the same thing. And you wonder why. And I know Dan right now is going to get mad to hear this because we are not the biggest fans of the only in Cleveland thing, but you wonder why people think that this town is just cursed. And what's a shame is that whoever did it, they're not around anymore. It's the good people that are left in Cleveland that are paying the price. Whoever caused this curse thing or whatever, if it's real, man, this ain't got nothing to do with us. Let the innocent people go. Let the innocent people go, please. Oh, the humanity of what I'm watching here. We're going to talk about all of this. Seriously, the Cavaliers, hey, this is why you went out and added Mo Williams added Richard Jefferson, added some depth to this team. This is part of it, and it starts early, and there you go. It could be worse. It definitely could be worse, but it's also not the thing that you want to hear on the first day of camp. You've got the Tristan Thompson issue. You've got Shumpert's here already, backs against the wall in a season that the Cavs have already described as a big business here. We're going to talk Cavs as training camp has started. Talk about the Browns, TMZ. That first off, do those letters not speak for themselves, guys? TMZ. I'm just saying, we're going to get into the actual nuts and bolts of this thing with Johnny Manziel and unnamed teammates. This is hilarious. Stop for a second. Before I introduce the show, just stop for 1 second and let this play out through your head as I'm about to do my little introduction spiel. Are these the same? I'm just curious. Are these the same unnamed players who last year, when the Browns were, 7-4, 7-5, those same couple of unnamed players, Josh Gordon, that were complaining to anonymous sources like TMZ that Johnny Manziel gives this team a spark and an energy, and we can't let this season go to waste. Them cats didn't enjoy that spark very much against Cincinnati, did they? That spark didn't exactly light up the back half of the season. I wonder if these are those same anonymous players. Only in a town like this, with a fragile sports psyche like this, will people even take any merit to this garbage that spews from a place like TMZ. And listen, the Browns are dysfunctional, and they don't even put the fun in that word. It's just all dysfunctional. We know this since '99, documented, talked about every single day. That being said, TMZ. I'm going to say those letters again. Watch out for the 3 unnamed players who wrote, who sourced an article that was so good that there's no name attributed to the article. TMZ published an unnamed article. So not only do we not have the names of the players, we don't even have the name of the person who wrote this article. You can tell me whatever you want, but I have a hard time believing, with all the trouble over there in Berea, that anybody is storming the doors to switch the quarterbacks, because that's what's wrong with the Browns. If it is, they're smoking something that even Josh Gordon wouldn't smoke, and I'm just going to tell you that from the bottom of my heart. Get out of here coming to me with any unsourced TMZ garbage story. And here's what's wrong with some of the local media here in this town is that to me, I think there's some of them feeding into this crap. And I'm going to throw my girl Mary Kay right under the bus, because she wrote an article that just points out exactly what I'm talking about. And again, I don't want to dive too much into this until I get Dan in, but the plain dealer, the article that they put out about this story, it was so funny. The way things are worded are so hilarious to me in the media. Mary Kay put out an article this morning that, according to TMZ Sports, some of Johnny Manziel's teammates are furious that he's not in the game. But here's the quote that got me. It's not even a quote. It's her personal way of writing her personal narrative. She wrote right after the introduction that Manziel is not being considered to start Sunday, despite the fact that Josh McCown threw the interception with 38 seconds remaining that prevented the Browns from scoring and sending the game into overtime. That is the narrative that you have chosen to begin to bookend your story about this TMZ article. Do you notice what I'm saying about the way that that's worded? That's not worded in a way that is putting facts out there. That's not worded in a way that, think about what I'm saying, guys. That is literally worded in a way to direct the conversation. I'm sorry, man. I'm not a journalism major, but I've seen this before, and that's such an easy little hack trick right there. Point being, it doesn't matter. This team, and we're going to get into it more, whoever the quarterback is, has a truckload of problems. But don't come to me and start throwing me out these stories. Go, see, everybody. No, listen, man. I'm telling you now. And I'll tell you what. Here's what's funny is that last year, when you had people and anonymous stories about Hoyer this and Johnny that, I didn't see any problem with guys putting their names behind what they thought. Nobody. All of a sudden this year. And here's my next question for you. And with this, I'm going to open the show. Is who exactly is beating down the door for Johnny Manziel? Because, look through the offense. With the exception of the deep balls to Travis Benjamin, who out there has this incredible chemistry? Who out there has this incredible conundrum that they play better when Johnny's in the game? Show me who plays better when either of these quarterbacks are in the game. You know when they played better? When their defense was forcing 50 turnovers, getting 7 sacks, and harassing the rookie quarterback. That's the only time any of these guys looked better. But I got that quote. There's an anonymous quote that says, I play better when he plays. Well, who exactly are you? And I'd just like to know how much better you played. Because if your name is not Travis Benjamin, I don't know who can say I played better when Johnny was in the game. And this isn't even to bash him or McCown or whatever. This is just what it is. Get out of here. This is, hey, easy, low-hanging fruit. Cleveland is a mess. It is so easy to write an article, throw a grenade over the fence, and just watch those goofball medias in Cleveland get those fans that are so fragile up in a mess and just continue to stir the pot that is the Cleveland Browns. It's a trip. I'll throw this on top of all that and wrap it up with a bow. This morning, while all this talk about McCown and Manziel is going on, can somebody tell me why the Browns signed Austin Davis to a nearly $5 million contract through 2017? The cat hasn't seen the field yet. And yet the Browns got the Cavs on my mind because of Shumpert. And yet the Browns have seen fit to lock this cat up for another 2 years. He wasn't a practice squad guy. You didn't have to protect him from some other team signing him. And I love the Browns quote with the signing. They said, well, this was a guy that we just really wanted to take a look at and get him in here, and we were able to do that. Do you know how many guys? They take a look at 10 guys a week. How many of these cats do we see come in, sign practice squad deals, and they're gone in 3 or 4 days? They're gone in a week or two. They signed this cat through 2017. Where there is smoke, there is fire. Now, whether it's Johnny, Josh McCown, some variation here, I got a feeling that the Browns have a completely different plan of attack at quarterback than perhaps what anybody is looking at here, and I think that may be signal number one. Very curious to see what Dan thinks. I'm going to get him in on the conversation. Welcome in, you guys, to the Sports Fix. I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, doing the thing, usually at noon. We kicked off a little late today due to technical difficulties, live across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe you're listening live on TuneIn, TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker, on Mixler, their respective digital and mobile apps. Perhaps you're enjoying the show live on our home base, thesportsfix.net. However you're doing it, thank you guys so much for doing it. I say it all the time, man. I'm the lucky one. Fortunate to have you guys join me here each and every day doing the thing. Get your fix. Be a part of the show. Phones, going to be a little tricky. Probably going to have to wait until the end of the show here due to the the technical delays here. As well, speaking of, hey, I forgot to thank all of you guys that listen on digital delay. Thank you guys. Everybody tuning in 24/7 around the world on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher, SoundCloud, CarPlay, all the places that you guys do the thing. Thank you so much. Phones, as I said, limited but open. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, right now, do it with us. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Twitter @TheSportsFixCLE. Make sure you like and follow us while you're there. Join the 25,000 social media followers of The Sports Fix. As well, you can email us anytime, thesportsfix@AOL.com. As I said, just on the other side of the break, we've got Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan and Everybody Hates Cleveland getting ready to join us here just a few moments from now. We're going to get his thoughts on everything that we've talked about already. TMZ and Johnny Football and Josh McCown and the beautiful disaster that is your Cleveland Browns. As well, the Cavs. Shumpert, where are you at on this? Again, it's not end of the world, but it is a kick in the tail that, the whole fresh start. I mean, we didn't even get into the preseason. We are day one in training camp talking about next man up. I mean, we just next manned up ourselves to death in the playoffs. And here we go again. It's all right. It's early. But it's early, man. Those are the words that you hear about the Indian season, too. Oh, yeah, they're still playing. They're playing, too, today. We're going to talk about all of that, the Buckeyes getting ready to kick off Big Ten play and more. Dan Wismar is going to join us after the break. As a matter of fact, I'm going to wrap this up and get to the break. Get you some news and get Dan Wismar right in on this conversation and pick it up there. Talking Browns, talking the Cavaliers as they start camp here, getting into a preview of the Buckeyes this weekend and more. Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland joins us next. It's coming up after the news. You guys don't go anywhere. And hey, do me a favor. Tell somebody else to tune in, especially because, hell, we're on the air now. I mean, if you had told somebody to tune in 20 minutes ago, they would have heard dead air. But we are on the air, off and rolling now. So tell somebody else to tune in. Click the little share button if you're listening on iHeart, if you're listening on TuneIn. Wherever you're listening, they all have a little share button. Click it. Tell somebody else to tune in. And I want to hear from you guys. Give me your thoughts on the disasters that are going on all over the place, the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to hear from you. Hit us up, Facebook it, email it, and share the show. Tell somebody else to tune in, because when we come back after the news, it's Dan Wismar on the hotline with us next here on the Sports Fix.
She told me don't worry, no more. We both know we can't go without it. She told me you'll never be alone. I can feel my face when I'm with you, but I love it, I can feel my face when I'm with you.
We here at the Sports Fix want to make all of your dreams come true.
What about my dream?
Edith, I told you I can't build your candy house. It will fall down. The sun will melt the candy. It won't work.
It will if it never rains.
Oh, maybe not all of them. Get your fix on the Sports Fix.
Harmony, oh love.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from the Sports Fix, and we always talk about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and techniques and ways that we can all change and make things better for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Hey, Sports Fix fans, I'm Fred McLeod, TV voice of the Cavaliers. When I'm not busy taking elbows for my buddy Austin Carr, I'm tuning in to see what the guys are saying.
Come on, Cavs.
Football season is party season at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. And no matter who you root for, everyone wins at Harry Buffalo. Every Saturday is Coors Light College Football Saturday with $6 pitchers, 4 bottles for $10, and the Buckeyes in full HD. Every Sunday, all the Browns action with Bud Light beer specials and $10 hair of the dog pitchers.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. That's some fun.
Plus, every Monday night, catch the Monday Night Football action with some of your favorite Browns players. Football season is most definitely party season, and your headquarters is Harry Buffalo North Olmsted all winter long. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your automotive car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. They're open late Monday through Thursday until 9 p.m. and open early Saturday so you can check it off your to-do list and get on with your day. They also have a newly remodeled service lounge and additional service bay just for Quick Lane oil changes. Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck is located at 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck. That's quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. Their rules violate antitrust laws. That's what the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled today, upholding a lower court ruling which determined that NCAA rules limiting what athletes can receive while playing sports are breaking the law. The appeals court also ruled the NCAA is not required to permit schools to provide more than the cost of attendance to athletes. 3 of baseball's 6 division titles are now over. The Dodgers clinched the National League West late last night when Clayton Kershaw shut out the Giants on 1 hit in an 8-0 win. The victory came on LA's 3rd attempt to clinch. Catcher A.J. Ellis homered.
You know, we can all sit back and say, oh, we weren't panicking. We were worried about it, but the way we've been playing these last 4 or 5 days, we knew we needed to win. And we needed to win with one of these guys pitching.
The Dodgers, who will meet the Mets in a National League Division Series, trail New York by game in the race to determine which team gets home field advantage in that series. The Dodgers visit the Giants again tonight, 10 Eastern on ESPN. In the American League West, Texas takes a 2-game lead over the Angels into tonight's game against Detroit, and the Rangers and Angels will begin a season-ending 4-game series against each other tomorrow night.
Hilton.com gives you unbeatable prices on hotels across the U.S. So when your team travels, you can too. Scream your heart out and then sleep your face off. Unbeatable prices on 12 unbeatable hotel brands. Only on Hilton.com. Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Interesting. I have no clue if this is true or not. Somebody sent me a note during the break and said that they saw earlier this morning that Johnny Manziel apparently, I don't know if this is true, again, somebody can check and find out, unfollowed the Browns Twitter account. That would be an interesting wrinkle in things. You know, the way the whole Twitterverse works and all of that. I don't get all Twitter hurt the way it's interesting. If you want to go look into that, he knows I wouldn't want to try because, you know, try to use end up losing the rest of the broadcast. And I got for all the unnamed people that want to put their stories out there, several people put their names behind denials of all of this. Andrew Hawkins tweeted out not 100%, 1,000% false on this story here. Joe Thomas said much the same thing, and a couple of other Browns also came out speaking their minds on the exact same issue. With that said, I want to see where Dan Wismar chimes in on this and many other things. Let's go to the phones, and plus, he'll keep me calm here. Maybe if I just don't push any more buttons, just click the button and talk to Dan, we can finish the rest of this show. Dan Wismar, everybody hates Cleveland. Everybody hates all of us here this morning. I can't keep the show on the air. TMZ don't like us. Shumpert breaks his wrist dunking the ball. What is going on, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jerry. I kind of want to see one of these days. I want to see Jerry Myers mic'd, you know, like when the show goes off.
No,
the air,
you don't.
No,
you don't. No.
That would make for some internet radio entertainment, don't you think?
Brother, the 30 minutes was the longest 30 minutes of my life waiting for this thing to reboot and come back up. I mean, I was ready to go. I was, boom, 2 minutes in, I'm doing my intro. And what actually happened was I don't know what you guys heard on the radio end, but on my end, it was basically like if a loop got stuck and just kept looping over and over. I just heard this da-da-da-da-da-da, and it froze. And after about 2 minutes of realizing that it wasn't gonna unfreeze and no button that I hit could do anything, I had to pull the plug out the side of this thing and reboot the whole thing from scratch. But I'm already seeing see, they didn't hear anything. Charles just told me it just went dark on their end, but on my end, it literally locked up my entire computer. And as I was explaining to guys, it's because I'm at the end with my carrier, and I went ahead and scheduled a new service. I'm going to go ahead and go through the monopoly of Time Warner, because can you believe I live in Cleveland, big old city, metropolis here, and I can get high-speed internet from exactly one person? Well, how does that happen in 2015?
Yeah, that's crazy. My son lives down in North Carolina, and he just got the AT&T Gigapower high speed. We're talking about thousand up, thousand down.
That's what I wanted.
Speed. And,
that's what I wanted.
Cities have Google Fiber, and there are places in the country here where people have absolutely no problem getting high speed access, and here we are in Cleveland. But anyway,
U-verse. I want the U-verse, and they told me that, I'm sorry, sir, but we haven't gotten to your. And there's other obviously people in Cleveland that have it, but they have the regular. They have the really low. It's like 6 gig up and down. It's like using your cell phone. It's like, matter of fact, my cell phone gets better speeds than that, but the high speed is not available here in Cleveland. The only high speed internet, like I said, is the cable monopoly of Time Warner. So what's going to hurt me for the next couple of weeks is once I get to switch over, then we'll be actually better than we were before, because it's even double the speed of what I had before. But I'm at the tail end with Clear. Sprint bought them out. Clear was the greatest deal. I really could take this thing around the country, do the show on location, had no problems. But when they bought it out, they decided not to continue the packages that I had, and you have to switch over to Sprint, which I have no interest in doing for various reasons. But anyways, in the final month, they are... they gave you until the beginning of November. Well, for the last 2 weeks or so, they have really throttled my bandwidth. And so that's what we got here this morning. You get to points where they just decided, you've used enough internet for the next 30 seconds. And unfortunately, my computer does not recognize that when you're running 50 different apps all at the same time to get this show on the air. So
it's almost like there's something going on in Cleveland sports,
maybe
there's
that's
a few
it.
things to talk about.
I need to talk to Johnny effing Internet. Is there one of those people out there? I don't care about the football guy, but I'd talk to Johnny Internet right about now. Talk to me. Let's do this. Let's start right off the bat. I don't know what you heard, what you didn't hear, but I am in no way not in the agreement that the Browns are a mess. Trust me, I am. But this whole stupid TMZ story, to me, is rife with so many problems, it's not even funny. Besides the fact that I've never in my life seen so many people give credence to an article that was written without a byline. This was an article that not only gave credit to anonymous quotes, but it was written by an anonymous writer. So we don't even have a person to stand there and say, yep, these quotes are true because I heard them with my own 2 ears, because we don't even know who you are that wrote this article. And I just find it hilarious that one moderately okay start by a guy who has been a disaster since he was drafted would somehow cause the rift in the Titanic that forced 3 players to go to TMZ and say that the entire team plays better when Johnny Manziel's on the field. I mean, who could have... First off, who said that? Because the only person that played decent when he was in there was the guy who caught long passes. That would be Benjamin. Other than that, who played better? I want to know who thinks they played better. But what do you think about this whole stupidity?
Well, you said it earlier, Jerry, when you said that you can explain it with 3 letters, TMZ, and it wouldn't matter if we knew the name of the writer for TMZ, he'd still be a writer for TMZ. Okay, so let's just start with that right now.
Good point.
The other thing is, I don't believe anything that's anonymous. This is clearly something that is agenda-driven, and like you talked about, the Mary Kay narrative of, even though McCown threw the interception that cost them a chance to tie the game, they still insist on starting him over John.
Right.
In other words,
Did you see that?
That whole
Did you see
narrative,
that too?
Forget the 300-yard game. When was the last time a Browns quarterback had a 300-yard passing game? I'd like to know that.
Derek Anderson,
and
I believe, maybe. No, yeah, Derek Anderson.
Don't know what that was.
No, Brandon Whedon. It was Brandon Whedon against Baltimore a couple of years ago.
Right. The other thing is, and forget TMZ, because this is, if you interviewed 3 offensive players for the Browns, first of all, I don't believe that any Browns players, quote unquote, went to TMZ. Like, let's figure out an outlet where we can get this vitally important news to the general public. Okay, that didn't happen. Okay, now if someone, somehow, some journalist, some guy, some man on the street was talking to 3 separate Browns offensive starters, ostensibly, you could engage them in conversation and eventually work them around to get to the point where they might say some of the things that this report says they said, however improbable that is. And I think it is highly improbable. What I do find interesting, aside from TMZ, set that all aside, but I don't believe it is a coincidence that Johnny Manziel is from Texas. The Dallas Cowboys have an injured quarterback. Yep. The Browns signed the backup quarterback to a 2-year deal. Yep. I heard a rumor floated the other day that the Cowboys were interested in Johnny Manziel, and that was a rumor that was floated. So I don't think all those things are coincidental. I think this story is related probably only to the extent that the Browns front office may very well be ready to part company with John Manziel and rid themselves of this headache.
Let's stop right there, because that's what I was waiting for you to go down that rabbit hole, because that is exactly what I think is going on. Whether it's the Cowboys or somebody else, obviously the Cowboys to me, because of the need there. But to me, what you just said spells out what I think is going on. And that's why I added, I haven't checked for myself because, again, I don't want to test the resources here too much. But when I got that note during the break that Johnny Manziel this morning unfollowed the Browns official Twitter account, I don't know if that's true, but I said, boy, that adds even more to the argument, because I feel you. Why in the world would the Browns not only sign their 3rd quarterback to an extension through 2017, but to an extension that ostensibly pays him as much as the starting quarterback?
Well, right, and maybe that's a bit okay. Let's assume that the Browns really do like Austin Davis, and that they really feel that they wanted to lock him up for at least another season, and whatever they were able to negotiate with the agent for Austin Davis was a 2-year deal at $4 million, still backup quarterback money, not starting NFL quarterback money, certainly, and so you could look at it as a prudent move. The Browns were criticized 6 ways to Sunday for failing to sign Brian Hoyer to a long-term deal. You had him and you let him go, So they've made a move that they consider to be prudent, $4 million for 2 more years, peanuts for NFL quarterbacking dollars, and but I think, like you said, the only person who is seen to benefit, cui bono is the old Latin phrase. Who benefits? So and you look at anything, it's like follow the money. Who benefits from a TMZ story that says 3 starters must are furious because Johnny Manziel isn't starting? Well, Johnny Manziel, ostensibly,
Yes.
He's the only one who benefits from that, from creating the narrative and perpetuating the narrative that Johnny should be starting over this other guy. So that's the thing that I see. Who is running in circles that might have TMZ connections? I don't know.
Exactly.
But, if I was to pick one player on the Browns, it would be John Manziel.
You and I do this show twice a week together. Did we not sit here, along with millions of people listening and fans and all of that, did we not sit here last season when the Browns were winning football games, by the way, and have this exact same thing happen? Now, all I'm saying is when you have similar things happen multiple years in a row, you do exactly what Dan just said, and you start to look at who benefits, who is involved, who is the lowest common denominator in these. Because for the 2nd year in a row now, anonymous quotes have been attributed to the disgust of the rest of the team in not playing Johnny Manziel, who has not shown any reason why players would be. Even if a player said, I could buy, hey, I kind of wanted to see what Johnny could do with another start. But to use phrases as adamantly furious and all of these things, that's a bit more
and
dramatic.
This is effed up.
That's dramatic. And to me, look at what the similarities are. You and I, Dan, sat here last year. Every fan in media in Cleveland sat here last year and watched a circus get started or restarted in the middle of a season, the same circus that started at the beginning of last season, and the same one that is starting now the minute that the decision is made that Johnny Manziel is not going to become the starting quarterback. Is there any coincidence that these stories started last year when the Manziel people wanted Manziel to be the quarterback? And now this year, Johnny was not happy last week. And I don't know if you heard his quotes, but he did the whole good trooper thing, but he said, well, of course I'm not happy. When you say that to the media, that's throwing the gauntlet down, because in today's PC world with the media, anything, I mean, you know it's going to be censorized and watered down. Just the fact that you said that means that deep down inside, you're very upset by it, and you're just using the terms that you think you can get away with to the media. Here we are, second year in a row. Johnny feels and Johnny's people feel it's time for him to start. He doesn't get the start, and this exact same story starts up again. There is no coincidence to me.
Well, that's true, and we don't know how much of it is Johnny and how much of it is, like you say, Johnny's people. Most NFL players don't have a posse, okay?
Yep.
Most NFL players don't have a camp, and so you always, with guys like this, you have to always, take that into account, that there are people who presumably are acting on Johnny's behalf, Johnny's sycophants, Johnny's fans, and Johnny's people. He has a camp, he has a posse, he has guys that do things on his behalf. So
his posse's on
first
Broadway.
Of all, you just accept that as part of the modern world we live in, with celebrity athletes and people that are just jock sniffers of one sort or another. But you're right. Who benefits? Well, at least the perception of Johnny and Johnny's people is that Johnny benefits if we can get a full-scale quarterback controversy going on regarding him and the Browns. So I think maybe, it's just, like you say, it's not a coincidence. I think that we might find even today, today or before this week is over, that Johnny's time in Cleveland is done, and that he will be moved for a conditional fifth-round draft choice or something. You hope they can get something out of him.
Yeah.
But and obviously the Cowboys look like a logical destination point. I guess Texas is the dumping grounds for former Browns quarterbacks. We're going to have Whedon and Hoyer and Manziel
there you go.
all flying their trade down in
Let me
Texas.
say this, though. Let me say this, and to those of you guys out there listening, whether you like the Browns, whether you like to wallow in their misery, whether you hate them, it doesn't matter. Think about this realistically. And let's just say you're in the Browns organization. Now, take rid of the obvious jokes of all the things we would all do differently if we were in charge of the Browns. Okay, if we're talking about this right now, and our gut tells us that somebody in Camp Manziel is responsible for this for the second season in a row, and you know that this kind of unrest is stirred up by particular members of this camp, how could this be? And you can tell me that if he brings it on the field, that's fine, but he doesn't, or he hasn't so far. How can you tell me that that is a good thing, and why would it be a good thing to keep that? As dysfunctional as you may be already, that's just adding even more to it. And I think that may be, on top of the fact that clearly the talent wasn't what it was expected. Even if it can be developed into something, it wasn't what the team thought it was going to be right off the bat. When you look at the undermining stuff, these type of things, I run as far as I can as an organization from it, and I get the feeling if the Browns were to do something, it would be as much that as anything else. But clearly there is something, and if you're a supporter of this guy, if you look at the fingerprints of how this stuff is going down, this is a second consecutive driven narrative here by somebody that had something to gain in that side. And again, it's divisive. It pulls apart a team that's already needs that less than any other team in football as it is. And I think you've got your answer right there. And if that's the case, even more than the problems on the football field, I say sayonara, see you later, because this is enough is enough. How do you fix a broken problem when you've got even more broken problems within the broken problem,
Well, yeah, that's right, and I love the comment on the message board there. All our exes play in Texas, but
yeah,
we I just the fan base. The problem is Jerry, is the fan base right now is truly divided. And there are Johnny lovers everywhere. We talked Monday about, me worrying at the game on Sunday that McCown would start slow and we'd hear the Johnny chant. And sure enough, there it was. It came out, Johnny, and the people are all for him. It's all the old cliche that the most popular player on the team is the backup quarterback. It's always the case, always will be the case. But there are people, like you say, that hate the Browns and that revel in their misfortune. And as much as I love Bruce Wood as a Browns fan, as an Indians fan, he's that guy. He's the poster child for Browns haters. Love you, Bruce, but you're that guy. They are going to. This is if the Browns did quote unquote what you say to be the right thing, and I agree, it might be the right thing. Cut ties with this guy. This would just feed the fire. This would just be even more, just another example of the dysfunctionality of the Cleveland Browns. This would be another example of them screwing up. By doing the right thing, they will become a laughing stock again and still. In terms of the dysfunction, they're not wrong. Bruce calling attention to the Browns' dysfunction certainly is not wrong.
No, absolutely not.
He's right more often than not. But if they would just decide, hey, this isn't worth trouble, and it's just a little ironic that by doing the right thing, they will open themselves up again, and still to the criticism of being a dysfunctional franchise.
And Dan, let me jump in.
It's not wrong, believe me. So
no, it's not.
Believe me when I say that, Bruce. I mean, you sometimes are just the teller of
the truth teller,
truth that us Browns season ticket holders don't want to hear.
And Dan, let me jump in there, because if we're wrong in what we're talking about now, then it's easy to track down the reverse of this. So the Browns sign their third quarterback, and remember, this is a team that barely likes to run two quarterbacks on game day, let alone a third. So they have now signed their third quarterback. So they now have three quarterbacks signed for the next 2 seasons locked up here. So now if you're going to go, it's not to get rid of Johnny, then the only other way you can go down that rabbit hole is it's to get rid of Josh McCown and hand the reins to Johnny and make Austin Davis the backup, or vice versa. Do you see either of those being a possibility?
The two possibilities being hand the reins to Johnny or hand the reins to Austin Davis.
And pitch McCown to the curb, because I can't see a functional reason to have all three quarterbacks under contract for the rest of this season. I mean...
not necessarily, although the dollars aren't debilitating.
They're not terrible. Yeah, it's $2 million for one, $2 million for another.
None of them are making Tom Brady money.
Combined, they're making $5 million. Combined, they're making $5
money
million.
Or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
no,
combined, they're not making Flacco money. But
no, it's $5 million. $5 million combined.
No, I don't really see that happening. Yeah. I think that they would have to be going back on everything that they've said to this point. I think that they would have to be refuting Mike Pettin and gosh, Jerry, aren't you glad that we only have one more week to go and we have a general manager back?
Really.
I kid. No, I don't see those scenarios happening. I think they're committed to McCown for better or for worse, and we know that it's somewhere in the middle of that. You're going to have good McCown and bad McCown, and people criticize the win now idea. People say, so what? You know what you've got in this 36-year-old guy. He's never won. He's got a losing record lifetime. So you're going to try to win now and win 5 or 6 games instead of 3 or 4 games. And the cost of that decision would be Johnny Manziel's development. Okay, that's the argument, okay, that you're costing developmental time for a guy who has a ton of potential. Well, maybe the Browns have come around to the realization that they don't think necessarily he has potential to be a big-time starter in the NFL, and that position and that slot on this roster remains unfilled, 16 years on.
I mean, Dan, look at the situation that we're looking at after week 2. And again, I get the whole, your starter shouldn't lose his job because of injury, and I wanted McCown to get the start, as did you. We talked about this, but that again, looking at this Davis signing, looking at this TMZ anonymous report coming out at the timing that it did, the fact that Johnny didn't get the next start, the fact that they went right back, and not just the way they went back, but if you noticed, since last week, have you guys noticed, those of you that follow the press conferences and listen to what Mike Pettin says, his answers about Manziel have gotten much more dismissive in the past 4 or 5 days than they were previously. There's not a lot of elaboration. There was not a lot of, it was a lot of straight no. Did you ever consider? No, I didn't. Next question, move on. And that wasn't as much there before, and I'm just wondering if that all isn't giant neon signs that we're not sitting here just staring at the obvious. Although with this club, the obvious is never actually the obvious, it seems. But are we all just missing that brilliant sign there that says, because as much as, like you just said, winning a few extra games matters to people that bought tickets and stuff like that. I mean, if the Browns had any inkling that this kid was going to be the future, I don't see how they didn't just give him week 3 and say the hell with it.
Yeah, that's true. And, it is early in the season to be writing it off. Okay. After the win in week 2, this team still had to feel that there were positive signs and that they weren't ready. They weren't at the point. And nor should we be at that point after week 3. Even though the effort and the performance was dismal the other day. It's not to the point where you write off an NFL season because Mike Patton and Ray Farmer, their jobs are on the line. And, yes, it is more important to them to win as many games as they can this year than it is to give Johnny Manziel some playing time when we're talking about a guy that's a few months out of a coke rehab,
Right.
So, we're talking about how much do you want to invest in this guy who's shown some of his true colors here over the last 2 years. And, to his credit, he went and got himself straightened out, presumably. And that is to his credit. That's not easy to do. But it doesn't merit handing you the starting job on an NFL football team as a result of, ending your irresponsible addictions. Okay? So that's that's where we are, and they've made that decision, and their jobs are indeed on the line. We talked about it the other day. Both Pettin and Farmer would be a bit surprised after all this to see them go on. It also is a little bit curious to me, and I think maybe partly welcome, but still curious, that the most inconspicuous, out of touch, out of the public limelight, out of the quotation business is Jimmy Haslam. Since this summer, not a word from Jimmy Haslam, not an interview, not a comment, nothing. He is nowhere to be seen or heard. Just find that interesting.
I agree with you. You know what? Go down the rabbit hole with me real quick, because I saw Larry's comment there where Mary Kay asked Mike Pettin this morning about did he believe 3 of his starters talked to TMZ. He said he's not even gonna talk about it anymore. But let's play the math game. There's how many? 11 starters on an NFL offensive team, right?
Right. We can assume that McCown isn't one of them.
Right. I've got the list.
And the article today says all 5 offensive linemen have said they're not the guy.
Right. All 5 offensive linemen, Josh McCown and Hawkins. Obviously, McCown didn't say it. So him, the 5 offensive linemen make 6, and Hawkins makes 7. So all that leaves offensively is Travis Benjamin, Isaiah Crowell, the fullback Michael Johnson, and the tight end Gary Barnidge, who, by the way, had his career day. had his career
Brian
day
Hartline,
with
right.
Josh McCown the other day, not with Johnny Manziel. He had his career high with Josh McCown as quarterback the other day. So are you going to lead me to believe that he was so unhappy with his big day the other day that Gary Barnidge ran off to TMZ? Like I said, Benjamin is the only player on offense who you could even statistically say played better when Manziel was in the game. So I highly doubt that Crow, with all his problems, I highly doubt that the reason for his slow start is who the quarterback is. And Michael Johnson, last I checked, is a rookie fullback who's just happy to have a spot on a team somewhere in the NFL. So I can't find 3 starters that would have said anything, man.
Well, the other thing is the game was played on Sunday. The report comes out on Tuesday. I'm assuming that TMZ doesn't carry a credential to cover the Cleveland Browns. How do they even have access to players, let alone 3 of them, let alone 3 offensive starters, to get their opinions on anything? So it just smells bad. The whole thing smells bad, and it's just a commentary on the state of journalism in this country these days. So, enough said about that. But, yeah, you're right. Where are these guys? How did TMZ get access to them unless they were fed access to them? And cui bono, who's the beneficiary of the narrative?
And the reason
that's why we're signing Austin Davis to a 2-year deal.
Guys, the reason that we're talking about all this, and I hope that you have this conversation with people that are off the reservation wherever you're at work or your friends, because this is all you got to do is take them down the common sense path of things. Don't let somebody stir you up. Just walk through the process. Walk through what we just talked about, and you can figure this whole thing out for yourself. Hey, that being said, the Browns have a game to figure out this week, and it's against the San Diego Chargers, and unless something changes in the next 3 days, Josh McCown's going to be the quarterback. The Chargers, as we talked about it on Monday, coming off a shellacking at the hands of the Vikings, who aren't exactly a powerhouse either. That said, they got a great wide receiver. They've got a great quarterback. I like Phillip Rivers. Some people don't. I do. I think they've got good running backs. I think there's a lot of weapons over there that San Diego can beat the Browns with. How are you feeling? How can we even say how are you feeling with all this crap around it? Meanwhile, they're trying to get ready for a football game. But how are you feeling about the Chargers game?
Well, one thing we know is they'll be stinging and at home and motivated to kick somebody's butt after the whipping that they took the other day.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bode well. The Browns on the West Coast haven't fared well in recent years, if ever. And so that doesn't – but the people that are saying the Browns are not going to win another game, they're going to 0-13, they haven't been paying attention to the NFL very much. The miserable Browns teams of 99, 2000, 2001 were winning 3 and 4 and 5 football games. So, it happens. There's other bad and mediocre teams in the NFL, and
right.
Things go crazy. So I think they have a legitimate chance because the Browns have to be stinging too. The Browns have to be just burned up, and from hearing it from their coaching staff about the scout team performance that they put on the other day. So I expect them to go out there and make a good accounting of themselves. I'm not going to sit here and predict a win. Because certainly 4 days from now, this controversy that surrounds this team right now is still going to be swirling. It's all the media is going to be talking about. It's all the commentators are going to be talking about. We're going to probably open the telecast with a shot of Johnny on the sidelines in a baseball cap because that's just the way it goes. That's what we saw last week. That's what we saw on the ESPN halftime highlights on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. Opening the Browns highlights of the game was Johnny on the sidelines with his baseball cap on. I mean, that's just reality, and that's the equivalent of page clicks, clickbait on the internet is opening the highlights with a shot of Johnny. So that we can expect. But no, I won't predict a win, but I think the Browns will show and play hard and be in the game because the Chargers aren't that good. And B, because the Browns are coming off a bad performance, and that's just the way it goes.
And you know what? I'm with you on that. I'm very curious to see, going on the road, how they respond and how they do, because really you would have thought if vice versa this week with the crowd and all of that, and then going on the road different. There's all kinds of dynamics, and it makes it hard for me too, because both teams are coming in, as you say, off of a stinging type of defeat and wanting to get off of that. I've looked at what the Browns have done defensively so far this season, and especially just look at the 3 games. Fitzpatrick is not the greatest quarterback. He does have a good weapon there offensively as a wide receiver, and we saw the ability that the Jets had against the Browns defense. Same thing last week. Their ability to really have their way with the Browns defense for the majority until the Browns stiffened up at the end of the game. I go back to Phillip Rivers, and I mean, that guy, he's won some big games. He's been there a lot, and Keenan Allen is really emerging as one of the top wide receivers this season so far. And I know that because I drafted him in 3 of my fantasy football leagues, and I'm sorry that he's playing against the Browns, but I'm not sitting him this week because I got a feeling he's going to do it again because he really has gotten loose. And they've got some weapons there offensively, and the Browns, I mean, that's a veteran quarterback that's done it before. I worry about what Phillip Rivers can do to the Browns, man.
Well, you do, and we said at the beginning of the year that even if the Browns had, and there's obviously some question about how good the secondary is now after they were tooting their horn throughout most of the summer, it all comes down to pass rush. And if you don't get to Phillip Rivers, if we don't do a better job of rushing the passer with our various, Mingo, Kruger, Armani Bryant, if these pass rushers don't prove to be above average at least, then they're going to struggle all year because other teams have playmakers at the wide receiver position, and we've got cornerbacks that are 5'9". So, no matter how good you are, it doesn't matter if you're not pressuring the quarterback. They did it against Tennessee. They did it against Mariota. They confused him. They sacked him. They harassed him. They hit him. They knocked him down. Well, that didn't happen last week with any regularity. And if it doesn't happen against Rivers or any other established QB they play the rest of the year, they're going to have trouble.
How did Minnesota do? I don't have the box score in front. Did they get at the quarterback a bit? Were they able to get in through that offensive line last week?
I did not see any of their numbers on pass rushes or sacks or hurries or anything like that. Sorry, I can't help you with that. But that's where the Browns have to be, and of course they need to have the middle, the Sheltons and Randy Starks and these guys do a better job against the run. This was the mantra going into the season: stop the run and rush the passer, and they've done that 1 game out of 3, and that's not a very good ratio.
And you know what? While we're talking about stopping everything, I mean, even the pass, we didn't even touch on, Joe Hayden. Is he going to be able to go? I mean, as of now, he's listed as questionable, and obviously all effort will be made to have him out there. But that's a guy that came out of the last game banged up. Quan Williams, is there any word? Has he been retested yet? It probably won't be until Friday, like McCown last week, but he is still in the protocol for the concussion for the league. So that's 2 of your top 3 defensive backs right there that are potentially out of the way there. Desmond Bryant should be able to go, but it's still up in the air as far as him. And, but I mean, those questions are big defensively. I mean, especially as we're talking about Hayden and Quan Williams. I mean, you instantly worst case scenario, those 2 down. I mean, you're starting Tremont Williams and probably Pierre Desir over Justin Gilbert.
Yeah, you'd think at this point. I mean, Desir was a guy that was in there at after Hayden's injury last week and held up okay. The problem, one of the problems with this concussion protocol is that since the NFL has taken it over, and we kicked that around a little bit before, is we don't know. We won't know. There's no word. There's no one on the Browns organization that can even comment or give a suggestion or venture a guess as to, what someone's status is, because it's that closed door, blackout silence from the NFL. So I guess we will have to wait till Friday. We even had to learn that last time around with McCown, that it was going to be Friday. It was Friday before we knew. And so, okay, well, that's the way they're going to do it. So, that's troublesome. At least we know that Hayden was able to come back in the game and get back on the field play Sunday after the injury. So It can't be that serious. Although a lot of times, those things hurt more after the game than they do during.
Especially because, I don't know if you heard, but there was some word that, and Mike Pettin said he wasn't sure exactly where it occurred, but there was some thought that it happened in the first play of the game, the rib injury there to Joe Hayden, and then he re-injured himself later on in the game as it went on. Mike Pettin said he was not 100% sure exactly when that happened, but as of now, don't forget too, Tayshaun Gibson banged up. Mike Pettin said as of yesterday, day to day on both of those guys. Same with Quan Williams. I mean, that's a huge hit in the secondary. Another one that we didn't mention, Craig Robertson. He does a lot at the linebacker position in special teams. He's one of those guys that adds a lot of quiet pieces to what the Browns do. That's another injury that they may be dealing with here going forward. That was one actually that Mike Pettin said out of practice the other day that he thought may affect them for a while here is his injury, and the same with Scott Solomon. Here we are on top of the usual ups and downs of the season already. The attrition of a long NFL season starts to come in, and that's what we talk about when you talk about a season of, you mentioned 1-15 and how hard it is to do that. That's where I really start to fall off the deep end with how bad this season could get. Not that the Browns are a god-awful football team, but they're a team that is just able to run that balance of being on that line as it is, and then once you start to hit the attrition of a long season, as we see every year, that's when you're just the shell of a team, and that's what I fear about this season getting ugly. Not that they just started with the worst team in the world, but they started at a moderate talent level and then peel it back from there with the injuries.
That's true, although coming into the season, certainly we hoped that cornerback, for example, was going to be one of the deeper positions on the team, certainly deeper than it's been in recent years, where you could reach down and get a Pierre Desir or even a Justin Gilbert, if you consider that depth, to help you out in case you did have an injury. And relative to other NFL teams, even through 3 games, you'd have to consider the Browns probably in the top half of the league in terms of the teams least affected by major injuries to key contributing players. Not that Robertson isn't important. He is. And, of course, Hayden and Gibson, both very important. But the nature of their injuries doesn't appear to be, all that serious yet. So I'm just saying, relative to other teams, and everybody has injury problems, many, many teams have far worse injury situations than we do right now. So I guess you can look at the cup half full as well, Jerry.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's the starting point, too. But as you said, that when you look at your top 3 defensive backs potentially being out of a backfield that has yet to really stop anybody in the passing game, that could get scary quick when you got Phillip Rivers at home and you're going to the West Coast on the other side. It's a gut check for the Browns defense, plain and simple. We can talk about it all we want. What defense is going to show up? Because you were thrown out by your head coach. You were called a scout team. You can't throw the gauntlet down on your defense any more than that. If you make those statements and they come out and do it again, where do you go from there if you're Mike Pettin? Because at that point, then clearly there's just no pride to be pulled up. And I would hate to believe that would be the case 4 games into a season, like you said.
Yeah, that's true. He did call them out, and we saw the defense respond in week 2 after a bad week 1 effort against the Jets. I'm hopeful that they can summon something, and like you say, you hope there's some pride there to be brought out by a calling out by your head coach and by your defensive mentor. It's not like he's some figurehead standing above things. He's the defensive guy, and it's his system that they are not playing in very well. So I guess it would have to come down on him next, but the players have to respond. I'm thinking they will respond. That's why I think it will be a close game Sunday, and I think both sides of the ball are going to respond to really what has to be an embarrassing performance for the players.
And I mentioned this Monday, Dan. I wonder if you'll be with me on this. I think you may. I said this Monday. I think this is going to be a season, because I think this is the type of team that they've got, for good or for bad. Up and down. You're going to see, and that's what good teams have that bad teams don't, that consistency of effort. I mentioned this, I think you may have already been off with me on Monday, but I mentioned it then. I said, you'll see that a lot from a bad team, and I think you're going to see that this year. You played down. in week 1, and then your coach calls you out and you suck it up and you say and you focus and you play much better in week 2, but then you coast on what you did in week 2 and you slide back down and you play a crappy game again in week 3, and then you pull your pride together and you come back out strong. You know what I mean? And bad teams have those up and down seasons. I think that, and maybe it's the best case because some people are seeing much worse than that, but I think that's going to be what we see here. I think you're going to see maybe 1-2 weeks in a row of a very dismal effort, and then that great game that you didn't see coming where you go, wow, man, this is the pride we've been wanting these guys to play with, and the up and down that comes with being an inconsistent team.
Well, yeah, I think that's true, and I think that really is the nature of the NFL these days. After you set apart the 4 or 5 quote-unquote elite teams that are consistent, that do have track records and have performed consistently well over time, over a decade or more. And everybody knows who those teams are. You have a bunch of middle of the pack mediocrity, and then a lower level as well. But I think the Browns have moved in terms of their talent level into out of the realm of the truly horrible teams into the realm of the great unwashed mediocrity middle. And that's where they are, and that's where you get that inconsistency week to week.
Yes.
Like we're going to probably continue to see that. I think they're a deeper team than they've been, certainly on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're deeper. We could look at the various position units and say, okay, if you take away offensive difference makers, scoreboard changers, playmakers, whatever you want to call them, which we are really devoid of, I think, at this point. Offensive line, adequate tight ends, average receivers and running backs and quarterback. You don't have playmakers there, but the talent I think is better than it's been in the last few years. And yes, the schedule is tough, but I still think this team is a 5 to 7 win team, and that's not going to make people do backflips in this town. But until they fill that quarterback spot, it's going to be where they are.
That's where I thought they'd wind up this season. But I got to tell you, man, if they can get this thing back to 5, all for it, and let's keep things moving forward, because I think that's going to be easier said than done here. I'm not predicting 1-15, but they're going to have to pull it up. It's the effort. As you said, I agree 100% about the talent level, and it's that week-to-week effort. By the way, talk about coming back to the Pack. The Pack! How about the Pack, man? Are you ready for the rematch of the 97 Super Bowl? New England and Green Bay, baby. Those two looking at least 3 weeks in as top contenders for sure, but that New England revenge tour rolling on. I'm telling you, they're running the table on the league this season. Go to the opposite end of where the Browns are hanging out right now, man. They are looking scary good. Both the Patriots and the Packers on each side. But man, how about New England?
Yeah, you're right. I said it 2 weeks ago that I thought that we were looking at Packers and Patriots as being the two dominant teams, and of course, it's hard to score 50 in the NFL. It's hard to do that. How often do you see 50 points scored in the NFL? It's got to be less than once.
We don't know what that's like.
Maybe
we don't even know.
Season, you see somebody put 50 in. We don't know what that's like. But and Aaron Rodgers is just superhuman. Let's face it. The guy just is one of the most accurate strong-arm throwers that I've ever seen.
Do you think he's underrated?
I thought Kornheiser last night says he said Tom Brady probably will go down as the greatest quarterback ever, and over the last 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, Aaron Rodgers has outplayed him.
That's what I was going to ask you.
That just
Do you
tells
think
the
Aaron Rodgers
plateau that Aaron Rodgers is on?
You think he's underrated? Because I do. I think that whenever I watch Aaron Rodgers play, I underrated him. When I watch him, I go, man, he's just even better than I give him credit for. This is the definition of a quarterback. I love Aaron Rodgers. His game is so smooth, and I think, if anything, he is underrated, like you said, because he plays in the era of Manning and Brady and then Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He is one of the best that I've seen
and I think
in my
he
lifetime.
might get lost a little bit in the shuffle, Jerry, because he's won 1 Super Bowl or 2. I think he's won just one.
One. Yes.
And that may be why he's in the second half of the sentence when you start talking about the elite quarterbacks in the league today. So, but yeah, as far as productivity and accuracy and numbers and stats, everything, he's right there. And smart guy, and he's playing in a really good system up there, and obviously the continuity of that offense up there helps him, and he's doing it this year without his best receiver, so you got to hand it to him.
Browns probably could have drafted him too. Somebody will tell me that here eventually. But I think if he doesn't get hurt, imagine how many Super Bowls the Packers probably would have. Their seasons fall apart when he gets hurt in those second halves of seasons and stuff like that, because the Packers, and I think when you talk about MVPs, we often use this term about, what would a team be without a guy. I think there's no better example than Aaron Rodgers with the Packers, because when Aaron Rodgers is out, the Packers are just a run-of-the-mill team that wins some, lose some, and whatever. When Aaron Rodgers is in, they're one of the best teams in the league. He's one of the few that changes the team that he's on based on being out there, because there's such a huge difference in that Packers squad. And most of the time, he's using different pieces. I mean, they've been rotating running backs for a couple of years until they think they've nailed something here with Eddie Lacy, and different wide receivers at times. And he's the constant. He runs the system, and he just keeps it moving.
That's true. And watching them the other night, it really looked like their defense is back too. Clay Matthews playing at a very high level right now. And he's been a guy who's had some injury issues, and the defense hasn't been all that great last couple of years. They look like they've got some things fixed there too, just from a quick look at them the other night.
I know. I think back to what you said the other day, and I was telling somebody this when we got off the show. I said it's sad because we're Cleveland lovers, and so we're not big fans of people that make all the jokes at our expense, but it's unfortunately a joke that writes itself when we talk about watching the Browns. You go to the game, and then you come home or whatever, and then you watch that Sunday night game, or you watch the late 4 o'clock game or whatever, and you think you're watching a completely different sport than what you just watched for 4 hours a few hours earlier in the day, because it's amazing. And Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys for sure that we're talking about when we say that.
Exactly.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with the Brownies here this week. Before I even talk about any more football, I know we're going to talk some Buckeyes, but let's talk Cavaliers. They're all over the news here this morning. I mean, Shumpert down right away. I mean, I'm with it. It's early. We got plenty of time. This isn't like the end of the world. But come on, who wanted to kick off training camp with the words next man up? We just spent 3 months of playoffs doing next man up. It was like Hanukkah. It was 3 months of playoffs. And now here we are right off the bat. What a bad start. Like maybe just in the moon there. We had the blood moon the other day. Maybe that's what we got for it, because Shumpert dunking the ball in practice the other day, breaks his wrist, and he's going to be out for the first 3 months of the season.
Yeah, that's a tough shot. He's such they call it, the term is the glue guy, right? He's one of those glue guys.
Yeah.
I think he, as good as his reputation is as a defensive player, I don't think it's good enough. I think he's underrated. I always wondered about the steals statistic. I think I asked you about that once last year. When they put a steal in the record books, do they give the steal to the guy that got the ball, or the guy who dislodged it from the other player? I think Shumpert, you'd double his steal numbers if you gave a steal to the guy who actually caused the steal, not the guy that came up with the ball. But he's got the quickest hands, and he really showed some consistency on the offensive end too with the mid-range jump shot, and that's really all you need out of him. In addition to his defense, is just the ability of someone laying off of him to hit the 12 to 15 footer, and he does that with some regularity. So, yeah, just a super valuable guy. The low end of that 12 to 14 weeks puts him at New Year's Day, right? And so you're gonna have him for starting January, presumably, and worse things can happen. Speaking of worse things happening, I saw just yesterday. I don't even remember the nature of the injury, but the Derrick Rose is hurt.
I was going to go there with you. How about
that? Who could have predicted that? But
I mean, seriously,
talk about your MVP type. How's the team going to look without him? We open, of course, with the Bulls on the 27th, and so it'll be interesting to see how that affects them. But every team's got them. We're sensitive to them because we went through all. We didn't win the title because of injuries last year, and so you hate to have that shot to the solar plexus the day after media day, that doesn't help your optimism at all.
Yeah, for those of you that didn't hear, Derrick Rose, first day of Bulls practice, takes an elbow to the eye, fractures his orbital socket. He needs surgery. He's going to be out for an undisclosed amount of time with that one there. And, man, that guy just cannot. Every time he comes back, it's something else. And some people are just cursed that way. Cursed. I threw that word out there, so I'm jokingly just going to throw it out there, my man. I mean, I know you and I don't believe in anything or only in Cleveland and all that stuff, but sometimes it does make you scratch your head and go, what the hell? Stuff like that. Like, Shumpert breaking his wrist, dunking the ball, on his last practice before training camp. Those things make you go, man. And like I said at the beginning, whoever it was that did whatever caused Cleveland to perhaps be cursed, they're not here anymore. It's the innocent people that are paying the price for this now, man.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
I'm just saying, they're
gone.
You
got to wonder, players, I guess those injuries could happen anytime. And,
I know.
A backyard game out in the driveway, you could go up
and
fracture your wrist on a dunk attempt. I mean, players' wrists hit rims on dunks. I mean, that's what happens. Every single time you dunk, your wrist comes in contact with the metal rim of the hoop. And it's probably surprising that it doesn't happen more. But
it's
just a shame. And the good news is we'll be back by January.
Yeah, and that's when we started. We didn't start playing ball till January last year, anyway. So that's
right.
LeBron will just be coming back from the Buckeyes vacation that he's going to take when they go on the national championship run there. So it'll be all good, man. I'm with it. It's all Speaking of curses, jokingly, Jonathan Knight and I used to talk about this. We should all get together and seriously plan something for real. Him and I used to joke about, well, what can we do like Pete Franklin would do back in the day? What can we do to get rid of the curse? And JK used to always say, hey, I want to reverse light. The only way to reverse the curse is to relight the river on fire and then put it out. We've got to go all the way back to the beginning, and we've got to have a controlled fire and then put it out and then start over again. And we jokingly throw all these ideas around of what we could do. We need to do it for real. We need to pull a Pete Franklin. We need to have a rally down on Public Square, get everybody down there. I don't know if we dig up some dirt from somebody's grave. I don't know if we dig up some old memorabilia, put it all in a pile and get a witch doctor, call the ghost hunters and get them to come out. I don't know. The Pope's around. Maybe we can get him to sprinkle some holy water. If not, I know people in Philly. Maybe we can just go get the priest from Rocky to come throw a blessing down on us. No matter what, somebody, we get together and we just annihilate this whole nonsense of a curse, man. How can we do this?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's something that needs to be done. As they say in Animal House, some really stupid feudal gesture be done by someone, and we're just the guys to do it.
Let's
do
it.
It's find the ash, bury the bones of George Steinbrenner under home plate. Whatever it is. We'll figure something out, Jerry, if we work on it.
Bruce, I let a laugh real quick. He just threw that. I wasn't curious. I wasn't sure exactly what Johnny Manziel made. That's funny. And technically the Browns' third-string quarterback that doesn't even play on the active roster now makes more money than the starting and the backup quarterback. That's pretty funny. Anyways, hey, here's something. My buddy Shane just sent me this while we were talking, and it's a good segue to go from one thing into the other. We'll talk a little bit about the Ohio State Buckeyes here, but I know you're probably not in the same demographic as me to be all video game guy, but I used to love the NCAA football games. I hated that they had to shut them down because they were just one of the most fun, basketball and football, the NCAA EA Sports games, and that lawsuit that they were talking about in the news, finally going to let them do it. If you're a fan of those games, be happy, because you may, within a season or two, get the return of those NCAA games there, because the Wild West is open now, Dan. These players are going to start getting paid. There's a whole lot of changes in the breakdown of academics and cash and all these things that come together with sports.
Yeah, I heard about that decision just before I came on with you, and it's interesting. Of course, the NCAA has been, as we know, for many, many years, making money off the crazy mythical notion that the players that play the games, that they aren't in any way, shape, or form their employees because of the technicality of the fact that they're students at colleges, and have been, raking in billions of dollars, charging TV networks $750 million with a B every year just to televise the NCAA tournament, which is where most of their revenue comes from. But that the players, and they can sell a jersey, the school can sell, Terrell Pryor's or AJ Green's jersey in the campus bookstore for $150, but Terrell Pryor and AJ Green can't have a dime of it. That just gradually over time became too ridiculous to hold any water anymore. And so, they finally have this cost of attendance clause that allows a certain amount of money to be paid to players, something in the, in a few $1,000s, $3,000 to $5,000 or whatever, that's available to be paid to players. But you're right, we're sort of at the beginning, not at the end of that process that's going to open up those earnings opportunities for players that have, and I'm not one of these guys that says that, amateur athletes and college athletes are being terribly exploited by the schools and the NCAA. They do get a free education, and because the cost of putting on amateur athletics grossly exceeds the revenues that they bring in, for the large majority of certainly FBS schools or the larger schools, the non-athlete student has been picking up the bill. Almost every school has fees that are charged to students that are to pay for athletics, to try to balance that budget. Whether those students are even interested, let alone attending football or basketball games, they've got to pay this money because revenue don't meet costs, and that's unfair. However you slice it, however you think athletes should or should be paid, it's not fair for non-athlete students to be picking up the tab because they can't make ends meet the way expenses are. So something has to change. It's starting to change. It's the crack in the dam, Jerry, I think, and there's going to be a lot of changes we're going to see soon.
I actually thought that the crack got stemmed a bit today by what happened with the appeal. This is the first victory that I've seen the NCAA get since they had these Ed O'Bannon and these different lawsuits coming their way. Because really, and last year when that breakthrough ruling was put down, I thought that was effectively going to be the end of the NCAA because they were going to have to pay out so much and the damages. They'd probably have to restart it as a different named organization just for one of those functionality things. But today, basically, the NCAA was backed up as far as the ruling that they don't violate the antitrust laws and that they are allowed to not compensate the college athletes for these video games and types of things because there is a reason that they're called amateurs, and there is a line. There was some cost of attendance, as you mentioned, and a few other extra things that they're allowed to compensate the players for. But for the most part, the NCAA got a big win in this one here. And I saw Stuart Mandel put out a tweet this morning that just had me laughing. Because 6.5 years to be exact, since this lawsuit by Ed O'Bannon started, and God knows how many millions and millions of legal hours that were billed to lawyers. And by the time this case was settled and appealed and wrapped up, there was only a few slight changes to the laws that were already in place. The only people that made out on this thing were the lawyers that made millions and millions of dollars to basically do a big circle. But as I said, this does open up the door for the video game series to come back because now the NCAA doesn't have to worry about getting sued by these players who say they're being taken advantage of. And so if that's your thing, it is. But interesting because this is really the first victory after a string of defeats for the NCAA here, and it's at least going to slow that crack that we were talking about there, because this was a court that said, whoa, Nelly, we don't have to just start, handing over all this money to these players. They are college athletes at the same time, and as you said, there are some things that they wanted to uphold as far as maintaining their amateur status.
Yeah, you're right, and that does, the NCAA, no matter what happens to the NCAA, they're going to appeal, and they've got more lawyers and better lawyers, and the players came out of this whole process basically with this cost of attendance, basically a reasonable stipend that just, because the sob story that the players would put forward was obviously, look at all the billions of dollars that other people are making, not us. But at the same time, as the cost of attending college has gotten up to the $30,000 and $40,000 a year level at some places, you're talking about something in the neighborhood of between $100,000 and $150,000 that is the benefit that these players get by being on a full scholarship. And the sob story was, and it's a legitimate one, that a lot of times just because all of your college tuition and room and board is paid for, that doesn't mean you've got a lot of walking around money, and you've got guys in college that are playing football that don't really have two nickels to rub together to go get a pizza on a Friday night. Well, that's the kind of thing that this $5,000 stipend was designed to accommodate. That the cost of attending school is not just room, board, books, and tuition. It also is incidental expenses that you encounter during the course of your college education, and that's what this amount of money, this cost of attendance money, is designed to accommodate. And so I think it's reasonable. I think it's fair, and I do think that players certainly benefit. The people that I mentioned that I feel for are the non-athlete students who get stuck holding the bag for the fact that their schools, individual schools, are spending more on putting on athletic, collegiate athletics than they are taking in revenue. And the cost has to be borne by all the other students, and that strikes me as very unfair.
You're listening to the Sports Fix. That's Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland. I'm J-Rocc, and we are going around the circle here. We talked some Browns, little Cavaliers, wrap things up. Hey, the Buckeyes, they're beginning, not wrapping up. They wrapped up their out-of-conference schedule, 4-0, heading into the Big Ten now. They've got Indiana coming up here, and talk to me a bit about the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers.
Well, the Hoosiers are 4-0, and they played Southern Illinois and they played Western Kentucky, and they don't have a lot of big time wins to show, but 4-0 is 4-0. I think what we're going to see Saturday is two good offenses and one good defense is really what it appears to be. Indiana is, I think, ranked 117th out of 128 FBS schools in total defense. Southern scored 47 points on them. Western Kentucky scored 34 points on them in losing efforts because Indiana can score. But their defense has been horrific. Their pass defense especially has been bad. On the other side of the ball, though, they do have a real good quarterback in Nate Sudfeld. He's a strong passer. He's second in the Big Ten right now, almost 300 yards a game. And they had a leading rusher in the Big Ten, a junior that's kind of out of the blue, a kid named Jordan Howard, who is averaging 168 yards a game, and I think trails only Leonard Fournette from LSU nationally in terms of rushing yards per game. So they're going to be able to move the football. And as I said Monday, I was concerned about, and I watched the Western Michigan game again last night, actually, and really distressing how easily they were able to run the ball against the Buckeyes. So they're going to face a good running team with actually a couple different backs that are quite capable. And to me, the story of the game is going to be, can the Buckeyes stop the run? Because they're going to face, in Michigan and Michigan State and even Penn State to a certain degree, some good rushing football teams over the next month and a half. And this will be telling for the Buckeye fans to see if they can slow down the Indiana offense. I think it's going to be high scoring because, as I say, the Buckeyes are going to score on everybody, and especially Indiana because their defense looks horrific.
For sure. I was looking at in the preview for this. It was funny. Not that these things matter when you get into the old time stuff, but 1942, the last time both of these schools were unbeaten by the time they played each other. It's been quite some time here, man. Definitely they weren't the prolific off. That was way back in the 3 yards in a cloud of dust era for all of football in general here. And, both teams coming into this one, as you said, feeling good and still looking to improve on things. And I agree with you. Can the Buckeyes get back to it defensively? Because through them first couple of games, I mean, that was what they were riding off of. And the defense was looking legit while the offense was figuring itself out and stumbling its way through. And then a bit surprising, perhaps, like you said, unable to stop the run there last week. And you've definitely got a solid rushing attack over here with the Hoosiers. And this is the first time for them. What? It's been 20 years. Go ahead.
Not to exaggerate. I'm sorry, I didn't. Not to exaggerate the Buckeyes' problems on defense. The Buckeyes are still rated, I think, 6th or 7th in the nation in total defense. They haven't given up a run of 20 yards or longer. They're one of only 2 teams that has yet to give up a 20-yard run this year. But it was a little disconcerting that the Western Michigan was able to average 6-7 yards a crack against them last week. And but numbers-wise and statistically, this defense is still holding their own and really, like you said, really bailed out a struggling offense a couple times already this year.
Absolutely. Indiana looking to go 5-0 to start the season for the first time since the mid-'60s. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes looking to extend the longest road winning streak in the nation right now. Was it 14 straight on the road to go on top of the 16 overall? But 14 straight road games heading into this one for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's 17 in a row now overall, longest streak in the country as well. So, yeah, and of course, Urban Meyer now starting his 4th season of Big Ten play, and the next regular season Big Ten game he loses will be the first one. It's really quite incredible.
So what are your thoughts on this one? How do you see it panning out at the end of the day? How much of a fight do the Hoosiers give the Buckeyes in this one?
Well, I think they'll fight for a quarter and a half. I think that I'm looking at you're going to have to score 40 to beat the Buckeyes. Obviously, Northern Illinois wouldn't have had to do that, but I think in general, as you go forward, you're going to have to score at least 38 to 40 points to beat this team. No Indiana does that. I think I'm looking at 45 to 21 or 45-17 or something along those lines. Hoosiers will score, but not near enough.
Man, I'll tell you what, I didn't even notice this until just now. The stat popped out at me. The only power of the Big Five conferences, the only schools, Ohio State and Missouri, the only schools that have not allowed a rush from scrimmage of more than 20 yards this season. So
that's right. I
just saw that.
I couldn't remember if it was Missouri, but yeah, that's. I knew there were only 1 of 2 schools to not have it happen. The safeties are playing very well for the Buckeyes. Safety play in Columbus is as good right now with Von Bell and Tyvis Powell as it has been, I think, in a long time in terms of tackling ability and just overall safety play. Those kids have really been playing well, and unfortunately, they've been forced to make a lot of tackles in the running game over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully that doesn't keep up.
Zeke Elliott looking to continue that streak of 100-plus yard games, and there's one guy out for the Hoosiers up front. One of their big defensive linemen is going to be out suspended, and that matter of fact, that's his second suspension of the season with Latham being out there, and that's somebody who's I think he leads the team in tackles in the first couple of games of the season, so that's going to be a hole there as well. Buckeyes looking to take the advantage of. What's the spread on this one? I didn't even get a look at this one, but they've been ridiculous the last couple of weeks. What do we got here this week?
It has been, and I'm not sure.
21.
I don't know that, and I just
21
don't
points.
pay a lot of attention to betting lines. 21.
21
for
the.
That sounds about right. And so 40-something to 20-something would seem to be in the right ballpark.
This is one I wouldn't bet.
You're playing at Bloomington, so but I guarantee that there will be as much scarlet in those stands as there is crimson come Saturday.
Sure.
I think I was at the Indiana game in Bloomington in 2009, and the stadium was half full of Buckeye people. So I can imagine that there will be plenty of backing for the Buckeyes over there in Bloomington.
Yeah, those last couple of spreads were something, man. This one here is one that I wouldn't monkey with. If you're into that thing, good for you. But that 21 is going to be probably right about where it's at. Those 34, 35s of the last couple weeks were easy money if you were a betting guy, in my opinion here. This weekend, too, pretty much there's only one or two real big matchups. You got Alabama and Georgia, obviously, is the pretty one.
Yeah,
here.
that's a great game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Clemson, Notre Dame looks like a big one not to miss. A couple more games going
Mississippi
on out
State
west, too,
and A&M should be a good one, too, from the SEC there. Mississippi State, Texas A&M.
Right. I think Arkansas, Tennessee is one that people are going to be paying attention to. Kind of the teams that are both on the fringes of the top 25. Tennessee was in there till they got beat by Florida. They've had a couple heartbreaking losses lately, but yeah, it's still a great weekend. I mean, you're getting into the time where every weekend you're going to have great matchups, and I'm watching the Clemson Notre Dame game because we don't know quite yet if Notre Dame is for real, but they certainly look good, and they're creeping into the top 5 in some people's polls, and this will be a big game for them. It's at Clemson, and Clemson's got a lot to prove, so that's one to watch, and then. Certainly, like you say, the marquee game of the day is Alabama-Georgia.
You know what? We'll talk about all of these games here on the gridiron for the NCAA, for the NFL, all of that when you come back on Monday. I'm going to throw this out there now, and I guess we'll have an answer before we come back. But what do you think? What does your gut tell you? We talked Cavs earlier and then got away from it. Tristan Thompson, the Thursday midnight deadline. I believe it's midnight. It may be earlier in the day, but regardless, I think it's midnight on Thursday. The deadline for him to either work something out with the Cavaliers or sign that 1-year qualifying offer that, according to his people, if he signs it, he won't be coming back here to Cleveland after that. What do you think happens? I thought for sure that broken late last week is where this thing would end up. Now that you're up against it with him sitting out a couple of days and everybody's playing chicken right now, how do you think this thing ends up? Do they just end up doing the qualifying offer, or do you see a last-minute deal much like Bledsoe was able to do with Phoenix last year?
My inclination, Jerry, is that something will get done long-term. And the only reason I say that is because Tristan Thompson's people are LeBron's people. Rich Paul. I mean, we're talking about sharing an agent, and I think there's been a lot of game playing and positioning and gamesmanship. Part of it may even have been feeding Chris Broussard the 3-year, $53 million deal as a done deal last week, and he jumped on it and misreported that, and it was shot back down, and essentially that was a proposal that Thompson's camp made to the Cavaliers, that the Cavs basically said we're not interested in that. So we had that trial balloon floated. Just the fact that Rich Paul is his agent and that Rich Paul is LeBron's agent leads me to believe that something will be worked out. It's not like there's a contentious relationship between the organization and the players' representative. And so with that in mind, that's, again, as a total outside observer without a clue, other than what I can observe, I'd say they're going to come to terms because it's Rich Paul and the Cavs and it's LeBron's guy.
I would have to think the same thing, and hopefully that's what we're talking about when we come back on Monday, and I think that's why LeBron, I mean, of course you expect him to say no comment, but he said, hey, my name's Bennett, and I'm not in it. And we ain't talking about Anthony Bennett, who they signed with there you go. I mean, there's your first domino. I mean, the Raptors trying to build up that front line of Canadian Cavaliers #1 draft picks. They've got Anthony Bennett. Now they're hoping they can get Tristan on the hook next year. But I'm with you. I think that they work something out. I thought that 3-year, 50, whatever, that sounded so like a LeBron James move to me that's why I thought for sure that's where they're going to end up, because that's a nice safety net, $50-something million to play some ball for the next couple years, and you set yourself up to make a huge payday 3 years from now. I thought, man, that's your done deal, and I think that's where it's going to end up. I would be shocked if when we come back on Monday, we're talking about Tristan playing under the qualifying deal, because that signals something much more contentious, like you said, than what it feels like to me. And if that's the case, that's a bad start to things here, because I don't think those if there's bad enough feelings to do that, they're not going to go away, and this will be a story that was going to sit there and hit the Cavs over the head all season long. So I hope when we come back on Monday that we're both right. I do think there's just too much to accomplish to not get something done.
Yeah, I would say so. And, it's not just 3 years from now, but even 1 year from now. And you have to sympathize with the player a little bit. If everyone's telling them that, hey, man, the league is going to be swimming in millions of dollars next year that they don't have now. The average fan, Joe Lunch Pail on the street, you, me, people that work, can't relate to the difference between 50 million and 100 million or whatever, how much is too much. And,
I can.
You make all these millions. What's a few more million to you? But it's real money, and these guys are advised by professionals, and you can't blame them for looking 12 months down the road and saying, hey, man, this might mean double-digit millions more for me than I could get right now. The timing for the Cavaliers is just unfortunate, but I like the fact that the Cavaliers are not feeling browbeaten or bullied into signing a deal that they don't think is in the best interest of the club over the long term. And Tristan Thompson's a nice player, but who knows if he's a $100 million player or a max player. My inclination is perhaps not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I thought that, this is such an interesting case, and I brought up the timing. What you said, it's just bad timing. There you go with Cleveland being cursed. It's bad timing on the whole thing, because if you're 1 year later, this is an easy decision that makes itself, because for once I can sympathize, as hard as it is, like you said, to go between 50 and 100 million. But I can understand the thought process that, man, if I wait one more year, I'm literally talking about double or maybe even triple the amount of money, and I could go from being overpaid to being incredibly underpaid in one season. Like I said, if somebody told me that I could make 2.5 times what I'm making right now if I sit tight for a week and sign this contract, I'm probably sitting tight for a week too, because I'm not that gung-ho to go to work. I like my job, but if I can, so I get it, and I don't look at it as being greedy. As much as it's easy to look at it that way, it's not if you're looking at it from the perspective of the world that they live in. Now, it's way different than ours, and it is greedy to me and you, but in the world that they live in, it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. So it's a
That's right. And in
situation.
the meantime, Jerry, the fans are just going to have to get used to the idea that Tristan Thompson's going to have to go to work and play some basketball this year for $6.9 million.
Son of a gun,
if the worst case scenario comes about for poor Tristan, he's going to have to struggle to get by on $7 million this year. And who can't relate to that?
I mean, seriously, poor guy, man.
I mean, you and I, Jerry, we don't make half that. So
look, half that, man. I mean, seriously, man. Can a brother get a raise? Dan Wismar, always a great time. Hey, lots of good football on tap this weekend. We'll get back on Monday. We'll talk about all of it. We'll wrap up the end of an Indian season, too. They've got a doubleheader here to play and a few more games to play out the string. Doesn't look like they're going to get to 162 this season, Dan. They'll probably be playing 161. But we'll talk about all that on Monday when we get you back.
Sounds great, Jerry. It's all fun.
You got it. My man, Dan Wismar, saved the day, by the way. When the show fell apart at the beginning, we were able to get this thing rolling. Sit tight, guys. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to crack open the phones. Last segment of the show, 216-539-7535. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Twitter @TheSportsFixCLE. When we come back, we'll talk about them Indians, that doubleheader coming up, the Twins series. We'll set the stage. Monsters have a new play-by-play man, and so much more. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of The Fix coming up next.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
Throwing you the best sports commentary in town. The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out fantasyjocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com. SportsFix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The SportsFix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys. Listen up.
No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Come on, man. And with the local DBC news, LL Cool J with a triumphant comeback. More so, but tonight.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my pants, putting suckers in fear, making the tears rain down like a mine.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. Final segment. J-Rocc back with you here to wrap things up. Thanks to Dan Wismar for being with us from Everybody Hates Cleveland. Thanks to you guys as well for sticking through the storm at the beginning, and some of you didn't. Some of you just got to skip right to the meat of it. Those of you that listened live, thanks for sticking through the beginning, and here we go. We'll be back on Friday, of course, for those of you that didn't know that, and those of you that did, look forward to BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners, getting you all set for the weekend. JK, Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire. Mike Brandenberry, did the tribe win last night.com, and as he prophetically texted me 2 weeks ago, he said, I'm off this week, J-Rocc, and I'll be back with you next week to put the Indians to bed. It looks like he's correct as the tribe here playing out the string, and it is what it is. It's in my opinion, the way they started this season, to finish above 500 is a win for me, and I don't care who likes that or not. I didn't go out there and lose that many games in April and May. They did, and they did turn it around, and that's all you can ask for at the start that they did, to dig out of that 11, 12 game hole that they were in, get back to 500, hopefully finish a game or two above it here. That's what I'd like to see before this thing wraps up for the Indians, and then they can get started into the off season. I mean, technically still alive. they can, if you want that, there it is. They've got to win all the games that are left and have everybody else lose. So hold on to that possibility. They've got 2 against Minnesota today. Then they've got one more, wrapping that series up tomorrow. And then Friday, they kick off the weekend homestand finale against Boston. And then there's that miscellaneous game against Detroit that will only be played if it's mathematically necessary to wrap up the season. When we get here with Mike on Friday, we'll start talking some more about the Indians. We'll see how they did in this series. Again, to me, get out there and win as many as you can. Finish above 500, as many games as you can. Take it from there and get ready to bring Francisco Lindor from day one into next season. Bring this pitching staff into next season. Continue to round out the roster, fix the holes that you've got to work on here, which I will say I feel better about, as Dan said Monday, now than I did a few months ago in this season. We'll talk some more with Mike about that here. And, of course, we've got a whole offseason of hot stove and watching the Indians rebuild this thing. Not rebuild, maybe that's not the right word, but build this thing to the next level of where they're looking to go. Doubleheader coming up at Progressive Field for those of you that want to go. Although I don't know if they get them all in because we had weather that postponed last night's game. And I'll tell you what, they run the risk of playing a 160-game season or less, to be honest with you, because this is it. If they don't get all 3 of these games in between Wednesday and Thursday, those games will not play either because there was no other room to put them. At the end of the season, it'll go in like Detroit, and that would be another game lost, which stinks to me because if you're a baseball fan, whether they're in it or not, another game is another game. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Right now, weather's been so-so. Can they get them both in? Hopefully, because as I said, they can push one of them till tomorrow. If they were to get them both washed out today, forget it. They get one, they could do a doubleheader tomorrow. They lose the game tomorrow, it's gone. So we'll see how many games they get in here. Hopefully, they knock out all 3 of them. We'll talk about that on Friday when Mike Brandenberry joins us. Did the Tribe win last night.com. JK here talking some Browns heading into the weekend. Who knows what may have fallen off the Cleveland Browns tree if you shake that branch hard enough between now and Friday. And we'll see. We'll talk about that. We'll preview the Chargers game. What else is going on here? More about the Cavaliers and the latest they've gotten into. Their compatriots over there at Quicken Loans Arena, the Lake Erie Monsters, finally announced they've hired the replacement for our man, Doug Plagans, who's tearing it up for Florida down in the NHL. I got a chance to listen to him on a preseason broadcast a couple of days ago, and it was quite the treat to hear my man, Doug Plagans, at the big show, baby. And his replacement, it comes from similar background. Matter of fact, I see it right here. He may perhaps be a friend of Doug here, that Doug perhaps has been helping along the way, because he also comes from Syracuse, which is where my man Dougie was from, and has a lot of experience through the ECHL, through the USHL, making his way through the minors, now up to the Lake Erie Monsters here, the affiliate of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's going to replace Doug Plagans as the play-by-play man for the Cleveland Gladiators and the Lake Erie Monsters, as well as the team's communications director. Tony Brown coming to Cleveland, voice of the Monsters. I've already reached out to Tony, looking forward to getting him on the Sports Fix here and continuing our tradition. 5 years now or so of covering the Monsters here on the Sports Fix. Looking very forward to having our first conversation sometime soon with the new voice of the Lake Erie Monsters, Tony Brown. You guys can follow him on Twitter as well, at Tony Brown PXP, as in play-by-play. At Tony Brown PXP on Twitter. And hopefully you'll hear him very soon checking in with us right here on the airwaves of the Sports Fix. Guys, that's going to just about do it for us here. Next couple of days going to fly by, and then we'll be right back at it on Friday. Get you ready for the weekend. Talking about all the NFL action on the slate. As I mentioned, Jonathan Knight, Mike Brandenberry in the house, BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners, getting you ready for your weekend slate of fantasy football. I'm on strike. I'm not even talking fantasy football until Friday. I had a bad weekend in weekly fantasy football, daily fantasy football. Fantasy football can kiss my ass for a couple of days. We'll talk some more about it on Friday. But I had a bad weekend, and that's the end of that. You guys have a great next couple of days. Hopefully just for fun, Indians sweep the next couple of games just so I can mess with Mike on Friday about how the weekend, it all comes down to this, and then I can just drive him crazy. We'll have Mike here. We'll talk about that, you guys, on Friday as well. Can't wait. JK, Mike Brandenburg, BJ Riddell, you and me doing the thing. Who knows what we're going to do, but we're going to do it on Friday, guys. Enjoy until then. Some Thursday night football tomorrow. There's a few college football games in between then. We'll be here Friday, noon. Same bad time, baby. Same bad channel, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Thank you for sticking with us through the trouble at the beginning of the show, all the way till the end. We'll see you Friday, right here, baby, on the Sports Fix. Have a good one, you guys. We'll see you Friday. Oh, what a day. What a day. What a day. We'll see you Friday, right here on the Fix.
Okay, now here we go. Welcome to the Cleveland Show, but this ain't no cartoon. Reality is all we know. You tuning in to Bravo. Yeah, you hear me everywhere, but it's only one of me. Let me make that very clear. Yeah, I'm from that terminal. You can see the lake from here. Faith in my teams, we keep getting closer every year. But we got the king, though, so hopefully we overcome. Yes, I have a dream, and I know I ain't the only one. Modell tried to steal my heart, but we brought it back. Thanks to Cleveland Clinic, now they call them Kiss the Cardiac. Rock Cars, Science Center, Tower City, all of that. Warehouse District, Euclid Corridor, and all the flat. You know that I'm a Tribes fan, and I love Slimans. Crockett Park's the perfect place for me to spend some time in. Baby, this is Cleveland. It is so much more to us. You can even go to Severance Hall to see an orchestra. Hey.
We rep our city.
Yeah.
Blue lights separate the grind from the gritty. We're sick fitted. Hood pass cover any city.